Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the E-commerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Edge podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome our incredible next guest, Mr. Gopal, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher your surname, but I'm going to give it my darndest. Gopal Chandrasekaran, correct?
Awesome. That was good.
It was close, and I appreciate you bearing with me. And you are the co-founder and managing director of Arizon Digital. Welcome to the podcast today, Gopal.
Thank you so much, Jason. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you along for the ride with me today. And look, we've had the pleasure of working on a couple of projects together previously. And I wanted to get you on the podcast to get a little bit of an insider's take on some of the opportunities and challenges facing B2B enterprises out there, manufacturers and distributors. You work very heavily in the B2B e-commerce space. You're an e-commerce development agency. You do development on multiple e-commerce platforms, BigCommerce and a couple of others, and you help manufacturers and distributors digitalize their businesses. You help them navigate the process of digital transformation. You help them to implement digital sales channels. You help them integrate their systems with some of their back-end operational systems, ERPs and CRMs and CDPs and other back-office systems and PIM systems, etc. And I'm seeing such a massive shift right now. It feels like a quantum shift is starting to happen in the world of B2B. I've been doing this for 4.5 years as an independent consultant specializing in B2B e-commerce. And for the first couple of years, it felt like it was a bit of an uphill slog. It felt like there was a whole lot of evangelism. There was a whole lot of education I was doing. I was putting out tons of content, podcast, LinkedIn, etc. And it felt like there was definitely a mindset of dragging some of these businesses that are sometimes third and fourth generation family-owned businesses. They've done things the same way for a very long time. It felt like we were dragging them kicking and screaming towards the next generation of experiences. But I definitely have felt a shift over the last 1 to 2 years. There definitely is an increasing understanding that the B2B buying demographic is changing. It's younger. It's aging down. 71% of U.S. B2B buyers today are now millennials and Gen Z. That's from a Forrester report last year. And so the buying demographic is changing, and there's an increasing understanding that the selling demographic and the methods of selling, the methods of engagement, the types of interfaces and experiences that we're creating have to adapt to that next generation of buyers. And it's an easier discussion for me to have now. Instead of having to start from even helping businesses build the business case, oftentimes it's okay, which thing do we do first? Is it self-service e-commerce? Is it EDI? Is it punch out? Is it listing products on marketplaces? Is it they have lots of options open to them of how to digitalize their business? And oftentimes they just don't even know where to begin. So are you feeling that similar kind of quantum shift starting to happen in the B2B world?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely, right. Like you said, as we go, there are 2, 3 things that really is happening, right? One is a lot of the B2C, B2B around personalization is starting to merge, right? It's no more of personalization is only needed for B2C and not so important. Then a lot of the B2Bs are really traditional in the way they operate. They have these dealer networks. They have these networks through which they have been reaching out. And there is always this pressure in the system is if you're going to be online and you're going to go directly to the customers, what happens to this network? And these networks are extremely important, in my opinion, even when online presence is established for B2B businesses, they cannot do without these networks. So we have worked with a lot of innovative ways to see how we can create an ecosystem where these kind of fears are not there. And it adds value to move into that digital transformation with the network, right? So everybody benefits out of it. And it's a win even for the people who are going to use that network to buy, right? So that's where the thought process of how we approach it comes into play. Because a lot of times what happens is, as humans, fear is the first thing, right? As soon as you see the change, you're like, oh shit, is it going to work for me or not? And that drives a lot of the defensive behavior. But I think to your point, the shift is happening though, because I was talking to a merchant the other day, like you explained, it's two generations down, it's the third generation, and he's looking to improve. But it's so traditional. He says that he wants to go get new business, and a lot of the people he talks to, they are those next generation millennials, and they're saying, hey, I can't do business with you because you don't have an online platform for me, and I don't have time or people to pick up the phone, call, and go the traditional way. So once you have your e-commerce and your online portals ready, then let's talk business. So he's basically losing by not moving over to the new models. So I think the success for this B2B is going to come not by fighting the transformation, but by making the existing ecosystem value add for the end consumer. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important part. That's a win win for everybody. So, shift is happening with AI, as a lot of changes are happening with that front that is enabling. And the biggest shift that needs to happen is with the mindset, because the rules of transformations are still the basic, right? How do you support your merchants? How do you support your customers? How do you make their experience better? How do you make it easy? How do you save cost and effort for them? How do you make it value add? But to make that happen, first the mindsets have to change that, hey, nobody's going to be hurt in this, and it's all going to be good for everyone in the ecosystem at the end of the day.
I think you raise a very good point, which is that I'm increasingly having conversations where B2B businesses, maybe they even had maybe an old portal, maybe it's a 10-year-old thing, nobody ever uses it, nobody recommends it, maybe they don't have anything at all. But one of the conversations that seems to be happening more and more is a conversation around digital customer acquisition. And historically in the B2B world, experiences have been gated, even for the biggest businesses that have online trading portals, sales portals, e-commerce portals, whatever. They've been hidden behind a login, and you can't even see the products. You can't see prices. You can't see inventory. You can't see anything. You can't download a spec sheet. You can't see an exploded drawing. You can't do anything or interact with those businesses or those suppliers until you authenticate and until you have a trade account with those suppliers to then be able to log in, see your prices, see the catalog you're supposed to see, etc. But that flies completely in the face of digital customer acquisition. Because if your customers can't see your site until they authenticate, neither can Google. And so you're behind a gated login. So even if you are huge in your space, even if you're a wholesale distributor that has 1 million SKUs, the reality is that you're not going to be found online as a supplier of those goods unless Google knows you exist. And increasingly, B2B buyers are no longer going to trade shows or expecting sales reps to knock on their door to find new suppliers of product. They're going to Google and they're typing in manufacturer widget X, supplier widget X, wholesaler widget X, whatever. And that's how they're finding the suppliers of the products. And that's how suppliers come into their consideration set as a supplier. And that's really something quite interesting, that even the mindset, because historically, the reason why businesses gated their logins, they had this, in my thinking, in my mind, of pretty unfounded fear. Oh, hey, I don't want my competitors to see what I carry. Oh, I don't want my competitors to see what I have in stock. Oh, I don't want my competitors to see what my standard trade price is on these products. So we won't offer anything. But with new e-commerce technologies of today, you can create an environment where people can see your catalog, but they have to authenticate to see pricing and inventory, for example. It means that you can be indexed by Google and you can go and court those digital first customers. You can go and find them. You can market to them. You can get on their radar without giving away the kitchen sink, so to speak, and opening the kimono fully. And so I think, to me, this whole digital revolution for B2Bs, it's not just meeting customers where they are once they're a customer. It's also meeting customers where they are when they're in the discovery phase of supply for either an actual brand supplier or a specific product or category. And that feels like a mindset shift that is finally starting to sink in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in today's day and age, information is available on the fingertip, right? So for you to hold back information and think that that's your trade secret, that's not going to help you. because information, so much of it is there. It's a question of really getting to that right information and filtering through it. So the more you can offer, that's build so much more trust for you to do business with you. Holding information actually is not going to help you build that trust. People do business when they trust you. Like even as an agency, there are so many agencies, people do business with us if they trust us, right? Because they have a choice to go to anybody. But at the end of the day, it comes to the trust, it comes to the knowledge, and then trusting the knowledge that we bring, because just having a knowledge that is not helping implement or solve a problem or understanding the practical issues of how to use it to implement doesn't help anybody. At the end of the day, businesses are running to make money, deliver value to their consumers. So it's not just about holding information. You have to share more in today's day and age. And to your point, as you made, the more you are educative in your business model, that much more easier it becomes to trust. Because one of the aspects of digital transformation is that you're empowering your merchants to do more of their work at their own pace, at their own time, at their own place. So if you don't educate with the new technology and how you are implementing a business with the technology, and they don't know how to use it, then all that is not useful, because if everything they have to come back and ask an agency to do, that's a waste, a lost time in the transaction. To your point, I think information has to be available. It can be gated at a point of completing the transaction. Or so we work with some merchants, we have recommended the same models like don't gate. So we work with some fastener companies, they have more than 200,000 SKUs. We in fact work with them, we show the specifications, PDF specifications, we show 3D diagrams on the e-commerce site, so they get everything that they want. And if they are looking for even so same kind of fasteners on titanium, we are even listing that, but just saying contact for pricing, right? Because that pricing is not for everybody when you go to these kind of high value metals. I think to close my thought on this, recap my thought, sharing information and educating is better in the digital transformation world than actually holding anything back, because that's not serving the purpose of going digital, right? Going digital is not just about, oh, I have a portal, you can go do stuff there. It's about the whole ecosystem supporting that and making these transactions happen more easily at any point in time, having that convenience to do that. And for somebody to make that transaction, they have to have all the information that will help them make that decision. And if you're holding some of that information back, then they cannot make that decision. They're going to go somewhere else where they can find that information to make that decision.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. They'll be able to find it somewhere, and if it's not with you, it'll be someone else, and that someone else is probably the one that's going to get the transaction at the end of the day. It's just a proximity thing. And one of the things that I'm also seeing in the market, in the clients that come to me and they want to go through it, they say, hey, look, we want to do this e-commerce thing. We've got a board mandate. We're ready to digitally transform. We don't know where to start. We don't know what technology to pick. We don't know how to think about systems integration and data sharing and all this sort of stuff. But one of the things that often I find when they get to me is that they haven't done any customer research at all. So their primary motivation in coming to see me to begin with is, how can we automate things? How can we bring efficiencies to our business? How can we sell more efficiently? How can we do fulfillment more efficiently? How can we manage back orders more efficiently? How can we manage quote requests more efficiently? How can we manage returns more efficiently? How can we bring efficiency to our business versus taking an outward looking view first and then saying, obviously, if I can help my customers do business better, faster, and easier for them, that is by definition going to cascade down and have benefits to me as a supplier, right? And so 9 times out of 10, in fact, I would say, I can't remember the last customer that I had walk through my virtual door that said, oh yeah, we've done a lot of customer research. These are the themes that have come out of our research. These are the things that are difficult about doing business with us. And these are the things we're trying to solve for. No, it's me actually asking them and saying, have you done any canvassing? Have you had any conversations? Have you created a safe space where your customers not talking to their account manager that they have to then go work with again the next day? Have you created a safe space, maybe with a third party who's come in and done this research on your behalf? Have you done research that asks your customers, what are the 1, 2, 3 things that you love about doing business with us? What are the 1, 2, 3 things that you hate or about doing business with us? Are they really challenging and really hard? What are the areas of friction that you're experiencing in trying to do more business with us? Or, hey, if we were to set up an e-commerce store, a sales portal, a trade portal, would you use it? And if not, why not? And if they say, no, I like Joe, I like Jane, my account managers, I do everything through them. Okay, cool. Let's contextualize the question a little bit further and say, okay, if you could continue to do the transaction with Joe or Jane, would you like to be able to log in and see what we've got in stock? Would you like to log in and see your pricing? Would you like to log in and place a quote request digitally and see the status of that quote request as it progresses through the quote response process? Would you like to be able to track items that ship from our warehouse to your warehouse by going through a simple portalized experience and being able to track it door to door so that you can, on the receipting end, make sure you've got the receiving staff there to ready to receive the carton, the pallet, or the container as it arrives? Would you like to be able to check the status of your credit account? Would you like to be able to do all these things, even if you continue to deal with Joe or Jane or Bob or Jane? And when you contextualize the question further, I find that you get a lot more nuanced responses. You get a lot more nuanced feedback from the customer. If you ask the questions with nuance, then you get nuanced responses. If you just generically say, hey, if we set up an e-commerce site, would you use it? If that's the only question you ask, you may not get nuanced enough answers to know what you should be building to make them happy, right? And so I think this is an essential first step that is often overlooked. Then I think the second step of research that's often overlooked is having conversation with the sales team. What do you need to be able to do your job better? What are you afraid of if we were to implement an e-commerce site, a trade portal? Are you concerned? Do you have concerns that you're going to have your jobs replaced or that you're going to get your commissions cut? If there's resistance, we need to uncover the resistance. We need to identify why the resistance is there, and then we need to ameliorate the resistance, because in a sales-led organization, as most manufacturers and distributors are, they're led by sales teams. And the reality is they are going to be very good at ensuring low uptake of your e-commerce solution if it's going to pick their pocket. If it's going to be less money for them, they're not going to recommend it. They're not going to go sit side by side with the customer and onboard them into the platform and sit side by side with them digitally for the first 1, 2, 3 orders to make sure that everything goes smoothly for them. They're going to say, oh, don't bother using that new portal. It's hard to use. Just keep doing what you've always done. Come through me, send me an email, pick up the phone, send me a Slack message, whatever, and I'll take care of you. I've seen this firsthand. So you have to take customers on the journey just as much as you have to take internal teams along the journey. But if you don't ask the questions, you won't know. There's a whole lot of decisions being made out of assumptions, and that leads to very bad places and very low ROI on these projects. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think 2 points you brought up, right, in that experience that you have working with the merchants. One is the quality of questions, right? That differentiates a project because everybody asks questions. When you interact with a customer in your discovery phase, how do you get to the right scope that everybody agrees to is by asking the right questions. Because if you're just asking ambiguous or generic question, you're going to get a generic response, and that carries on, and it just becomes more and more disastrous as the project goes, because now everybody has their own assumptions of what it means. And so the questions are extremely important, and that to some extent comes with experience, and some it comes with your homework, right? You don't go and wing just without thinking through what that project is. And so one of the first questions normally I'll ask my merchants when I'm meeting them for the first time is, hey, why are we even doing this project? Why are you going to spend your time and money on this? So if you don't get a very good answer to that, then you know that, okay, this either is not a project that's happening, or is it something that we need to dial down more to make sure that it has the right sensitivity and urgency and the need for that project to happen. So I always ask our merchants whenever they're starting, why are you doing it? So either there has to be a pain point, or there has to be a growth aspect, or something that is critical that the effort is going to solve. Otherwise, there is no motivation. Just doing something for the sake of doing only going to get you so much result, right? Even if you're sincere about doing it. The other problem I also noticed many times is that many of the clients we have gone through in a firefighting or rescue mode because they've been already in the project and a lot of time has been spent, a lot of money has been spent. They're not seeing results. They don't see a site to launch and they are getting worried now. And then they are looking for somebody else to come and help. One of the things I've noticed a lot of times is when we go to these projects, a lot of times they will think of it as a technology project, right? And for me, when you're trying to do something for a business, there's no technology project. It's always a business project. Because as a business, when you're going to go and evaluate if something was successful, it's going to be based on one of the success criteria has to be how your business grew through that, or how did it create a foundation for you to scale. It's going to be about the business and the growth of your business. Nobody gives you high points or, hey, I implemented this great e-commerce system and that was the project. Oh, if that didn't make any money, it didn't make any improvement in your conversions, it didn't make your staff more effective, it didn't engage your team better, it didn't get a buy-in from the users of your own team, then that project is not useful, right? Because at the end of the day, business is only trying to answer the success or failure based on how it helped the business, right? Not how they improved and went to some great technology. For that matter, right? Today's day and age, everyone is talking about AI, agentic AI, how to use AI to make things better. It's not just about just getting with that AI solution. My first question is, hey, yeah, you can get data. Where's your data that this AI is going to use, right? And show me how clean that data is, how effectively you can tap into that data. Because if you don't have that, yeah, you can do a great technology project and say AI enabled, but you're not going to get any good results out of it, right?
Mhm.
So knowing that business value and answering the question clearly as to what is that value that you're going to achieve with that project and how your business is going to benefit from that, I think is the most important. To your point, all the questions and understanding and the baselining has to answer some of these key questions. And that's where the right questions have to be asked to make sure those things are articulated well as part of that conversation and documentation.
Yeah, and what I like to say is not only in my own business, but in the clients that I work with, like I want to be a magnet, not a lasso. And if you want to ensure adoption of any technology that you spend one, two, three, $400,000 implementing, integrating, updating your business processes, updating your org design, updating your data design, updating your data quality, rationalizing data. If you're going to go through this mammoth 6 to 18 months piece of work as a program of work, then you want to at least have some reasonable expectation at the end of it that the customer is actually going to use what you have built. Otherwise, you're going to see zero ROI, right? And I prefer in my business to be a magnet, not a lasso, meaning that I want my content, I want my experience, I want engaging with me to be so attractive to my customers that it becomes a no-brainer to work with me. And then it becomes, I want them to always feel like they won the lottery when they met me, right? And I want my clients to feel that about them, right? And so I think if you want to guarantee adoption of your technology, you have to make sure you're building for the market. You have to make sure you're building for the customer. And then I think where AI helps with adoption is, pardon me, one of the areas where I think AI is starting to make an impact in the B2B world, and I love your take on this, is platforms like Motivate, which are using multimodal AI to automatically guarantee adoption by customers by not forcing them to change the way that they do business at all. Basically letting them continue to do business with you in the way that they always have, but automating that process as if they were using your digital technology. So I'll give you an example. So let's say they've got a customer today that's buying off them, and they always send their purchase orders as a PDF or as a CSV, and it's always attached to the email, and that email always gets sent to their sales rep, right? And their sales rep today takes the attachment off the email, they manually key the order into the ERP, and then they attach the PO number into the ERP alongside the order to match the PO that they received from the customer. Now with multimodal AI can receive that order. It can interpret, it can take all the details out of the PO. It can map it directly into the commerce system as if the customer logged into the portal and placed it themselves. And then it can flag any missing detail or any missing data fields. It can flag that directly back to the account manager so that the only thing they got to worry about is completing the fields that were incomplete or filling in any data that's incomplete. And then that goes through the normal process as if the customer was already using the commerce system. So I think if we lower the barrier to adoption by saying, okay, Mr. and Miss Customer, you keep doing things the way you've always done it. Send us messages through WhatsApp. Send us messages through Teams or Slack or whatever. Send us orders, attach the files there. We're going to pick those up and use AI to interpret those and map those directly into the commerce system. Now, the customer doesn't have to change their behavior at all for you to be getting value out of your new, shiny new commerce system. And I think anything we can do to lower the barrier to adoption of our customers using our technology, that means by definition, they're going to adopt it at a much higher percentage. So I'm seeing that mentality change as well. Instead of saying, oh, hey, Mr. Customer, Miss Customer, you've now got to log in to get the benefit of using our technology. You got to log into this portal and you got to do everything through there to get benefit out of interacting with us. No, let's look at email. Let's look at WhatsApp. Let's look at Slack and Teams. Let's look at those as headless commerce channels where I can place a quote request through those channels. I can get a quote response through those channels. I can find out how much you've got in stock, what my price is. It's almost like a headless search engine. It's also a headless transactional engine. And so that's where I think headless starts to make sense in the B2B world, not headless web portal front ends, but all of these traditional B2B communication and sales channels. Now, all of a sudden, we can bring automation to those as if those are headless commerce channels. And that, to me, is a very exciting evolution of our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are multiple aspects to this in my thinking with AI and how do you enable. Of course, you want to reduce the barrier for adoption, no question about it. See, I did digital transformation for Fortune 500 companies. I was a senior executive at Pricewaterhouse, and IBM bought us, and we continue to work. So I've done transformations for companies like Caterpillar. I helped them establish their dealer network. I helped them establish their lane strategies to get the product faster in the market. Like they have 16, 17, 18 levels of product hierarchy. So a lot of these kind of complex things, right? You have to find a way to make the people buy into it, right? Not only your customers, even your own employees. Before your employees are your customers too, because if they don't buy into what you're trying to do, then they are not going to be able to convince, because your company is your people. And if your people are not bought into your vision and what your company is trying to do, then it's not going to go any further from there. So definitely that when you say reducing the barrier, it's barrier for our employees who are going to represent the company, for our customers, our clients. Overall value generation happens in the ecosystem, not at individual pieces. So that buy-in from the users at all levels is extremely important. Otherwise, like you said, it's not going to be successful. Now, when it comes to automating and not, like AI, I see it in two ways, right? One is just automating, like you said. There are things that you could just automate. There is not much value for a human to sit and do it. Like you took the example of reading an email, taking an attachment, putting it in a system. Yes, you have to automate those because it frees up time, it makes it more efficient, less error prone. So definitely there's value in that. But the way I look at the real value of AI is to be a companion for the employees or the users, right? So I'm a customer service team, and if I can bring all the information and insights from the information that I have for my customer service agent to respond more quickly and more effectively and productively and close a ticket that typically used to take, say, 30 minutes, now I can close it in 10 minutes because I was able to use these technologies to improve that information flow, bring clarity in that information flow, generate the insight that really helped solve that. That is the experience that really makes the value of AI a lot better. But a lot of times, unfortunately, the way people think is, hey, I have a team of 10 people. Can I use AI and chat and cut it down to 5 people? And that's a way to think it. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of the value from these technologies come. And when you are able to enhance the value you are offering to your customers, not necessarily by cutting people, but by using these new technologies to make that conversation better. To make that conversation better, you have to get the buy in. And people buy in when they see benefit for them as well as for the work that they do. I'll give you a real life example that happened with me earlier this year. I rented a car with budget. I went to California, San Francisco. I rented a car with budget. I rented it for 3 days. Then I decided, okay, you know what? After day one, I thought, okay, I really don't need the car anymore. I'm just going to return it. My plans change, right? Everybody's plan changes. 20 years ago, or maybe let's say 10 years ago, the customer service in was so good that I could have just called the budget or any rental company for that matter. And I could have told them, hey, my car is parked in this hotel. I don't need it anymore. Can you please? I don't have time to come to the airport to return it. Can you please take the return? And they would have said, yes, we can do it. Leave the key in the hotel counter, this, that. We'll leave the receipt there. It would have been a lot better experience, right? Even though we did not have so much of AI and everything. What happened to me 2 months ago is I had to take it to the airport to return because I couldn't do it online. And there is nobody to pick up my phone to answer and say what I can do. So I ended up taking to the airport. I couldn't just leave the car in the return because they said, oh, there is an exception here. You have to go to the counter. Okay. Because they are going to deal with it. We are not able to check you out just in the return. I go to the counter. There's only 2 people in the counter, which can take 10 people. And there's a huge line. And believe it or not, I spent almost 1.5 hours just trying to return that car. And I almost paid the same amount that I would have paid if I'd kept it for 3 days. So just imagine that I was thinking we are going to all these places. We talk so much about customer friendly stuff and how do you create that customer friendly systems? How do we adopt technology to do that? But on the ground, that was my experience, which was way worse than what it could have been a few years ago. It really comes down, why I'm giving you that example is to say that it really comes down to thinking how are we going to use the technology to improve that experience, like you're talking about, improve the adoption. Because just talking about it and just getting it in your ecosystem to say, hey, I have it, that doesn't help anybody.
It's interesting that you mention rental cars because I have had absolutely horrific experiences with every rent. Like there's not one of them out there that's easy to deal with. Some are slightly less difficult to deal with, but all of them are really difficult. Getting a hold of someone on the phone, almost impossible. Getting service at the counter, almost impossible. Using to the point where it's almost impossible to rent a car with a debit card. It has to be a credit card. And if you're someone like me that I don't do credit cards. I only do debit cards. And then, what's interesting is I've got cards from all over the world, from New Zealand, from Mexico, Wise, everything else. And if your current residential address doesn't match up to where your credit card is from or your debit card is from, then they won't accept it. Then everything has to match with what's on your passport and your driver's license. And your driver's license has to be from a country that they support. So if I use my Mexican driver's license, I can't rent the car. But if I use my New Zealand driver's license to rent the car, then they'll let me rent the car. But then I have to use a credit card from New Zealand because the country of origin of the card has to match the country of origin of your driver's license. It is just, and I could list off 10 other things that are difficult about dealing with rental car companies. So to your point, I think what we're seeing here is the damage that monopolies do, right? Because these major rental car companies, the Hertz, the Thrifties, the Avises, the major rental car companies, they have zero incentive to change because they're all as bad as each other. Not one of them is good. They have no incentive to improve that experience because they have effectively a duopoly or an oligopoly on the market. There is no alternative. But I can tell you right now that if an alternative came along that was a digital first company that also backed that up with amazing human service where it's required to escalate to a human, And I could do all those things like you just said. If I wanted to return early, I could go and say, what do you want to do today? If I had an agent on the portal when I go there, instead of having this massive form and drop down list and everything else, if it just had a ChatGPT-like interface that just said, what do you want to do today? And you just said, I want to return my car early. Great. Let's have a conversation about the scenario that you're in. And you could describe in normal human language, oh, hey, I'm at this hotel. I normally have my car until Friday. I'm supposed to return it to this. Here's my rental number. I'm supposed to return it to the airport. I can't return it to the airport. Can I arrange to have someone come and collect it from my hotel? It's this hotel at this address. Even if I have to pay an extra fee, a small fee to make that happen, can I make that happen? And if I can have a normal human-like conversation with an AI agent who then understands the sort of process behind the scenes that needs to be connected to make that happen, that would be a very valuable use of AI for rental car companies. But to your point, I think unless you think of the practical application of that AI experience, you're never going to be able to build an experience that that even matters to anybody.
Absolutely. And that's where, see, this example I took because it brings home a lot of different things we talked so far, right? Customer experience, the mindset, the benefit of a project, the adoption, all of that is all intertwined, right? Because this example shows that the company are not thinking what will be a benefit to their customer. Because if they thought, how can I create a process that's going to make my customers say, wow, that's great. I want to come back to these guys. I want to be a magnet for these guys. I don't even want them to think of another company for this kind of transaction next time. If they had a mindset like that and then they built a process, then it cannot be like this, because they would themselves figure out that if somebody has to spend 2 hours just to return a car in a line, and they lost half a day just because they had to come to a location and one person cannot take it, the next, they would have not come up with this process. So this is exactly bringing home that you need to have the right mindset. You need to have clearly articulated what is the benefit, what is the experience you want to deliver. And once you know that, then the process and the use of technology and how you enable it, putting the right technology to use, all of that just happens, right?
It's a natural consequence.
It's a natural consequence of that. So it's very important to start with what is the experience you're going to generate for your customers? What do you want them to think? I like your analogy of being a magnet rather than a lasso, right? You want them to come back to you, then you have to create that experience for them that makes it memorable for them. At the end of the day, we are still not robots. We still don't have a bunch of things wired into us that interferes with how we think. I think that's where it all comes down to, Jason, really is technology is going to keep getting better and better, right? It's going to get more and more powerful. But the question is, how do you put to use? Because whatever you get, there is always two angles to it, right? It could be used for good, it could be used ineffectively, or it could be used for bad too, right? So how do you come? And that's where the attitude, definition of success, what you want to achieve. And you cannot go wrong with a process that you design with your customers in mind.
I've often said that the clients that I deal with, just full stop, businesses, I think, should have a chief empathy officer, because I think there's even the businesses that have a chief customer officer, that doesn't encompass the mindset change that needs to happen inside these businesses. If you had true empathy for me and you going through the horrible, painful, frustrating experience of renting a car, returning a car, trying to get human level service, trying to get fast service on a business trip where time crunch, trying to make flights, all this sort of stuff happen. I tell you, if you had empathy, it would be impossible that you could create an experience like that. It would be impossible. You can only do that. You can only create a terrible experience when you have zero customer empathy. You've excised empathy out of the business. You've made feedback almost impossible. Like going through a form, because I've tried to give them feedback. I had to get a refund at one stage. It took me almost a month to get a refund. It's interesting. This rental car thing is such a big deal, but I've experienced it also with airlines and trying to buy tickets online. My residential address here in Mexico, I'm trying to use a business card out of New Zealand, and I get blocked, and so then I've got to go through a broker instead of going directly to the airline. And then, of course, if I need to change my flights, then it's difficult because I've gone through a broker instead of directly through the airline. Or if I need to add on an extra bag or something like that, the airline, I can't do it directly through the airline. I got to try to go back through the broker. So it seems like a lot of these very large businesses, especially global businesses, it is like the empathy gene has been systematically bred out of the business. And I think that is the opportunity. The flip side of this is the opportunity that small and medium-sized enterprises have uniquely, because they're typically not public companies yet. They're not responsible to public shareholders. They're responsible to internal stakeholders and customers who are also stakeholders in their success. And therefore, there is a massive business incentive for them to inject empathy into every single thing that they do. Because the natural outcome of empathy is trust. You said it from the beginning. If customers don't trust you, they won't do business with you. How do you generate the trust? By having freaking empathy for them and actually caring about the experience they have when they engage with you at every single touch point they engage with you through. And it is that, to me, that is the single biggest missing link in the chain, is how do we culture a culture of empathy within our business at every single level, not just with the salespeople, not just with customer service, not just with the people that deal with logistics or returns, not just the people that are directly interfacing with the customer, not just with accounts receivable, right? But at every layer of the business, we have to think about, if I have empathy and if I can literally put myself in my customer's shoes and say, what is it like doing business with me? If I can sit alongside them, this is what moves the needle. That's my sense.
Absolutely. This is also going back to, like I told you earlier, one of the things that our merchants are telling us is that nobody expects that, oh, there's never going to be any problems, right? Problems happen. That's the way of things. But we are there with them to solve it. We are not running away. We don't find excuses when there is a problem. We are standing right next to them, with them, to solve it. And that's part of the empathy, right? That means we are putting ourselves there. We are feeling the pressure with them. Hey, the site is down, losing business. Got to bring it up. We got to do it. And that in itself goes a long way in taking that stress away, because they don't see as, oh shit, these guys messed up my system. They see as, hey, they are with me. They are doing their best to solve it. We're all in this together. And that one thing makes so much difference for everybody involved, because one thing is, now you can focus on the problem and you don't have to think about getting defensive or anything, because now that trust plays into it then, because they're not thinking, oh, you're just here to, you're with them, you're feeling the pressure, you're going to help them solve the problem. And at the end of the day, that's all it is. The basics of how the business works is not any different. The technologies come and go. The way of doing changes. To yesterday, we were only talking to people on a phone, and today we do a chat, we do a Slack, we do a Teams, we do 1,000 ways to deal with a customer or connect with it. But again, if you don't have the intention to connect, then none of these things help you. If you build, if you don't have so that's where that empathy, the ability to understand what a client needs, how to make it better, how to feel them, give them the confidence that what we're going to do is going to solve a problem for them and that's going to benefit their business. It just comes down to that. And it's a question of, how do you have your mindset to do that? How do you establish process based on that to do that? How do you use the technology to do that? And this is where you talked about monopolies versus small and medium businesses and things like that. I remember when we used to do these SAP projects, we used to have a basis team, and to bring up a sandbox, they'd say, hey, I'm going to take 3 weeks. There's no way I can get it before that. So UAT has to counter or keep the timing for that much time to bring up the hardware, bring up the server, this, that, apply all the software Today you click a button and you get it like 5 minutes later, you're ready to go. So you have to use the technology for the right of it, because there's always going to be good things out of it and there's always going to be the wrong way to use it. If you use the technology as an enabler, most of the time you'll be right. If you make something technology as the most important thing, then that's not going to solve anything, because it's just doing what it's supposed to do, right? So other thing I tell my kids and my friends is, in tomorrow's world or even today, information is available on the fingertip, right? You just touch a button on the phone, you get so much information. Going back to our original conversation about paywall or paywall for getting to the information, you press a button, you get everything. Now, earlier, but you don't know what you can trust today, right? Because what information you read, you don't know what to trust. So is it better that on the touch of a button you're getting all this information but you cannot trust anything? Or is it better that you had four sources of information and you could trust them because you know what it says, because it is neutral? There is no way that it puts you in an echo chamber based on what articles you have clicked and things like that. In a way, that's better. But can the technology make it better to still get the right information with the fingertip? Yes, it can. And it can make it a lot better than what it was with those four sources, because today you and I can record what's happening around us and put it, and people know, hey, this is happening. But again, there's a good side to it, there's a bad side to it. So that's where, how your mindset is and what is the experience you want to create. That's where putting all of these things in perspective to use it in the right way makes it powerful.
Yep. Could not agree more. Now, let's talk a little bit about the channel opportunity in B2B that doesn't exist in B2C and D2C. So, yes, we've got self-service e-commerce opportunity in B2B, but we also have punch out, we also have EDI, and we also have marketplaces now. According to DC360, marketplaces are still the fastest growing channel for manufacturers and distributors in the world today, which is that I find that staggering. But there are now more marketplaces, B2B specific and vertical B2B specific marketplaces than ever before. People are enjoying, whether you're a business buyer or whether you're a retail consumer, we like ease, we like convenience, we like speed, we like getting the best deal and being able to compare multiple vendors side by side in an easy environment. We're also seeing more and more, in particular, wholesale distribution companies establish their own marketplaces where they say, look, only 50% of our products are we actually going to have in our ERP and our warehouses, et cetera. The other 50%, we don't want to have to even think about them, and we don't even want to have to send the order off to them for dropship. We're going to have the supplier, the ultimate supplier of the goods, list the products, upload the product data, set the price, whatever, and then we're just going to clip the ticket for the transaction that goes through our platform. And so definitely these hybrid sales models are much more common in the B2B world than they are in the B2C and D2C world. And oftentimes the manufacturers and distributors that I'm consulting with, they're not even aware of the sales opportunities that they're missing out on because they cannot meet those customers where they are. So if a potential customer is using a Jagger or a Coupa or an Ariba as their e-procurement system, they will only work with you if you can integrate with them via punch-out to make their procurement process streamlined. If they're running SPS Commerce on the buy side, and they will only integrate with you via EDI because that's how they place all their orders, because all the POs are automatically generated out of their ERP and then sent to the supplier via API, via EDI. If you can't service them via EDI, you'll never get a chance to even get a foot in the door with that potential customer. Or if it's a government tender, for example, or if it's a large industrial purchase that's being put out to tender, you'll not even be able to make a bid on that opportunity to supply into that market if you can't sell to them in the way that they require you to sell to them, to even get into their preferred supplier partnership or preferred supplier agreement. You oftentimes will not even be able to get into those opportunities unless you can technically meet them where they are. And this is increasingly becoming the case, especially for mid-market and larger buyers that are buying at scale. They're automating the buying process, and if you can't facilitate that, they don't do business with you. So is this something that, and this is a whole new discussion to be having with a lot of these mid-market B2B suppliers. They're so used to playing a man-to-man game with one sales rep assigned to one account, right? And that's how the whole entire relationship is managed, human to human, that they're not even aware that these opportunities exist in the market. And then what happens usually, and what I see, is a sales rep will be talking to a potential new customer. They've knocked on a new door, they've made a phone call, they've sent an email or something like that. And then they'll hear, oh, this punch out thing. Oh, they're telling me I need this punch out thing if I want to do business with them. Or they're telling me I need to do this EDI thing to be able to sell to them. What does that even mean as a sales rep? I might not know. I might have heard the words, but I don't know what that means to my business. And so that's when they'll come to somebody like me or somebody like you, and they'll say, hey, look, we've got this new opportunity. We think it's a $500,000, $1 million a year opportunity, but they're telling us, they've given us this document. I had a customer come to me recently. They said, we have a buyer on the buy side. They've given us a 21-page PDF of how they have to integrate with us via EDI to win our business. That's the only way they will purchase through us. But we think they're a $500,000 a year potential account. So we'll do anything. Like, I don't, like, just make it happen. Just figure out how to integrate with these guys so that we can sell to them, right? Mm-hmm. These are the kind of conversations I'm increasingly having. And this is opening up their mind to what the opportunity is in the market if they have the underpinnings of the technology to be able to facilitate that kind of sale.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important by industry, right? For some industry, it's going to be very important that they have that punch out abilities because they have a process through which the purchase happens. There's an approval tier and all that. And they don't want to keep rebuilding it just because they want to do business with you. So if you are able to connect into that systems, it again comes to their business value, right? They have a process meeting them there. It does not have to make them do any changes to do business with you. So I know, especially we work with some lab equipment companies that go through this because there's a budget and there is a process that the purchasers are following for approval. They have to stay within their budget and have the authorized people and have the layers of how much somebody can order, somebody cannot order. And they can't keep redoing this for every other person they buy with. So if you're offering a way to easily fit yourself into that process or integrate with that process, that's the ease of use with which they can easily do business with you. So that definitely helps. So it is important. Like if you look at medical industry, like we work with some pharma companies and we build integration for them with Cardinal Health because Cardinal Health is one of the biggest distributors. Now, Cardinal Health only integrates through EDI, right? And we built that. And now it makes it easier for us for any manufacturer who's doing business with Cardinal Health and they have contracts with Cardinal Health and they want to automate, then we are able to easily do that for them. It's very important. Again, it highlights some of the points that we have been talking about throughout this conversation we are having is meeting the merchants where they are makes it easier. Think about this is also about the empathy, right? You're thinking about what they have to do to work with you, not just about what you have as an offering. You are actually going and saying, hey, I know that you need this kind of stuff and I offer. That reduces the friction. You want to reduce as much friction as you can, and then things work better.
Listen, Gopal, this has been a fantastic conversation. An hour has absolutely flown by. It's been super enjoyable. We've covered a lot of territory in an hour. Now, if people want to get a hold of you and they want to have a conversation about all things e-commerce, development, delivery, if they want to consider working with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm there at LinkedIn. I'm there at Twitter. Now, I'll drop my contact with you. You can include it in the link. A text message to me on my mobile 832-451-9408 is great. Just let me know that, hey, you are a B2B enthusiast or a merchant looking to have a conversation. Definitely you get a response from me. Absolutely happy to connect and continue this conversation and see how we can help each other out in creating better business value for you.
I love it. I love it. Now, as we come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question. Any question you like, can be personal or professional. So, Mr. Gopal Chandrasekaran from Arizon Digital, what is your question for me today?
If there is one thing you can do to make a business successful, what is that one thing you will do?
Look, that's a very good question. I'm not a big believer in silver bullets. What I try to do is I try to meet my merchant clients, because I also work with platform vendors and SIs and investors. So I don't just work with merchants, but for B2B manufacturers and distributors that I'm working with, I simply try to have empathy for them, and I try to meet them where they are. That's the first step. I can't expect them to meet their customers where they are if I don't meet my customers where they are. So I have to model empathy for my clients so that they then can extend empathy to their clients. Or I will try to, throughout the discovery process, for example, I will try to inject stories and ideas and concepts and experiences into that discovery process, almost like a little bit of on-the-fly consulting, a little bit of an on-the-fly advisory service, to try to inject empathy into the process so that by extension, we're having those conversations with their customers. We're getting to the bottom, we're getting to the real root of the challenges that the business faces and the barriers that their customers are having doing business with them. That because oftentimes they think that there are no barriers to doing business with them. They think that it's easy, that, oh, we've got the most amazing customer service team in the world. We've got the most amazing account management team or field sales or SDRs, BDRs, whatever. We've got the most amazing team. We're a 50-year-old family company. We've had some of these accounts since the inception of the business. We've got 50-year-old business accounts that are doing business with us. And so sometimes me and my clients, we can get really myopic. When we're inside the fishbowl, it's hard to see what things look like from outside the fishbowl. And so I try to I try to really challenge the traditional thinking inside the business. And it oftentimes starts with the sales team, because usually the sales team is very resistant. They typically are the most resistant team in the business to change, because they are rightly petrified that we're going to pick their pocket, that we're going to take commission off them. And if they live and die by commissions, my friend Jason Hine from the B2B EA, and I've been friends with him for a very long time, he's a fan of saying that sales reps are coin operated. So the reality is, if they sense any hint of an idea that if customers migrate to using these digital channels that are easier for them to use, that they're going to get less commission because of it, they're going to be very anti that. So my first job oftentimes is to get in there and have a conversation with the sales team and let them know that I'm a massive advocate for salespeople. But I'm also an advocate for giving them superpowers. And I'm also an advocate for taking away their admin tasks, which add no value to them or the customer. I'm a massive advocate for that. And I don't know a single salesperson alive that enjoys admin. And up to 50% of a sales rep's time is admin, and they freaking hate it. So if I can take away the admin while also putting additional money in their back pocket, because they're able to have a bigger portfolio of customers, they're able to actually have a bigger book of business underneath their accounts, so they're able to have more accounts assigned to them because so much of the grunt work is automated, then that's a win for them, because it means they can have more customers generating revenue for them out there without them having to do every single step of interacting with those customers manually. And so it's really about meeting my customers where they are and meeting them with empathy and saying, okay, you've got to, because oftentimes I'm brought in and they think it's going to be an e-com project. But what it ends up being is a much larger scale digital transformation project that oftentimes we got to go back and we got to look at other systems. We got to look at ERP. Okay, cool. Maybe you need to modernize your ERP before we could ever do an e-com project. Maybe we've got to completely revamp your digital catalog and the way that you do and manage and collect and collate and aggregate and rationalize your digital product data. Maybe we got to go through an exercise on that first, and we've got to do some data engineering to get that ready for digital channels, because maybe it's the team inside the business that is hiding and abstracting away that nasty data and plugging the gaps before it ever hits the customer. But now all this rotten data is going to be on show if it's available through digital channels. It better be ready, because it's going to be out there, warts and all. And so I simply try to meet my customers where they are, meet them with empathy, and then try to help them create a vision of where they want to get to for their customers. And then we just try to roadmap the pathway to get them there. And that sometimes means a 6-month project. Sometimes it's a multi-year project, because they need to be able to allocate budget over a sustained period of time to make that happen. So that's how I try to approach it.
Absolutely. I admire what you do for your merchants. I think it's awesome. It's been great working with you, and I look forward to working more with you, Jason. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.